to welcome you all to for January. And I'd like to note that we do have a quorum. And I'd like to start with introduction. So I'm Dave Betzler. I'm the chair. I'm from Monument, Northern El Paso County. B
Babbitt, Northern El Paso.
Yeah, turn your...
B Babbitt, Northern El Paso County.
It's the middle one. There you go.
You got it.
You're on.
Oh, Cynthia Aki, Colorado Springs. Is that right?
That's good.
That's exactly who you are.
Yes.
Francis St. Germain, El Paso County.
Andrew Bunn, Department of Human Services.
Lucy Crandall, Colorado Springs and Seniors Blue Book.
Jody Barker, Alzheimer's Association, Central Colorado.
Wendy Farr, Colorado Springs.
Phyllis Huggins, Eastern El Paso.
Dixie Wodell, Southern El Paso County.
Lisa Aldridge, PPACG Area Agency on Aging. Jessica, our admin support, isn't here today, so she's going to be depending on the recording to do the minutes. So we need to be exceptionally alert as to turning our mics on and off, because if you're speaking and your mic is off, it's not going to record. So the button you push is the one with the profile of a face with the voice coming out, and then when you're done talking, you turn it off, because we're limited on how many microphones we can have on at one time. So, thank you.
Joe Urban, Area Agency on Aging. And also to add to that, if you could mention your name if you're saying something that will help her. She knows most of the faces in this room, but not all of them.
And we have a couple others. Dixie?
Hi, Dixie. Dixie Herring, the Independence Center, Colorado Springs.
And Joyce Whittle, representative to Park County.
All right, so that's the RAC membership. And if we could go around the audience, please. Pat?
Do I need a mic?
No.
Next. Okay.
Chris Larson, Park County,
Senior Coalition, okay. Okay, so
Carol's behind the post.
Carol is just coming in, so we'll say hi to Carol as well. Note that she's here. So on the consent items, we have the agenda, and it's before us. We have one change already. Under the provider presentations, they're going to reverse the order, so we'll have YMCA first and then the UCCS. Are there any other changes recommended for the agenda? Okay, and then we also have the minutes attached. And I'll note at this point, too, that the minutes are now in a new format. This is standardization across Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. And so, while I think it's a really important change and a good change. It helps for clarity and also just for quick absorption of the information that's there. So are there any changes to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain. Go ahead.
Dave, I might suggest that we actually, if we could, Pat, would it be okay if we switch the YMCA with your comments?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Because they do have to leave.
Right. I was going to have them go first, and Pat will be after that.
Well, I don't know if we'll have time after that's done. That's what I was concerned about.
Sure. Okay, so with that change to the agenda, are there any other, I'll entertain a motion for approval of by consent for the minutes and the agenda? Okay. Moved by
Say
Wendy.
your name, please.
Yes, Wendy Farr.
And second? And it was seconded by Phyllis Huggins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, so we've now passed on to Section 3. I'd like to start at this point with, Pat Ellis, is that what you're saying?
No, we would start with the YMCA.
Okay, let's start with the YMCA presentation then. we have public comments first.
Yeah, we would want to do public comments, probably, if there's anything other than Pat, yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you for your flexibility. I need to leave shortly after 9:30. I have a class, so my teammates kind of came up and asked if we could switch the agenda, so thank you, CCS, for that. So Moving for Better Balance is the balance program that's funded through our AAA contract this year, our grant. And it was developed many years ago. The YMCA became involved in 2012. And basically the program is a 24-class curriculum. It's 1 hour gentle movement twice a week for 12 consecutive weeks. We can serve up to 25 people in any of the individual classes or in individual programs, depending on the facility where we offer it. Most of our classes are offered at YMCA locations, at various branches. I do offer it off-site in other places where there's a large enough room that really accommodates movement of that many people. So the program, it's called TAIJI, T-A-I-J-I, Quan, Q-U-A-N. It's, as I said, evidence-based, so you know exactly what that means. Years of research in it, and I was trying to read through some of the studies, and they're highly technical. But it's good to have that amount of research behind us. So that's basically the format and where we offer it. We completed 6 programs last fall. We have 5 scheduled so far for this spring, and we're hoping to schedule 1 or 2 more. What we projected is that we will be serving 300 seniors in that program. And I think we're going to be, if not on target, very, very close to it. So I brought a few testimonials. I asked other instructors to send them in. So I don't want to try to relay the stories from other people. I'll just tell you a couple of brief ones. A lady in my class at the senior center last fall said she needed to use 2 canes for stability, and she'd been needing to do that for quite a while. After completing the class, she was happy to report that her balance and leg strength had improved enough that she could now easily move using just 1 cane, and she plans to retake the program. That's another thing I wanted to add. Research shows that it is the most beneficial if participants take it 2 times consecutively. So if they take it in the spring, then it would be again in early fall or so forth. So the closer together, the better. They come to class 2 hours per week for those 12 weeks. The other part of the program that makes it really successful for people in meeting their goals about improved balance is that they practice a minimum of 1 and hopefully 2 hours a week on their own. It can be with another friend who's taking the program, which we try to help encourage people to pair up because it really is very beneficial. Or they can just practice on their own. And when we have the DVDs to give them toward the end of the various programs, they have that DVD to follow, in which Dr. Lee, the person that has put this program together and continues to research it even today, even currently, they can follow him doing the sequence of moves. So a lady named Sue from the Briargate Center took the class and believes that her balance is much improved and that the class has given her a renewed sense of self-confidence. She says she is much stronger and is now consistently participating in other classes such as Silver Sneakers at Briargate Center and also at Tri-Lakes. So there's someone committed if they're driving to 2 different Ys. So that's always a goal, is for us to help people understand that the fitness journey and the goal of improving balance is not just 12 weeks. You complete it and you're done and everything's fine. It's very, very progressive, just like all of our fitness and health journeys are. And so the more services that we can encourage people to get involved in, there's so many other programs that support senior health and vitality and mobility. So one other brief anecdotal story this is from the Downtown Y. One sweet woman named Anna had very bad arthritis in her hands. This instructor is quoting it. She says, "I always tell the students to let their fingers drip like raindrops from their wrist." After just the first class of doing wave hands, which is one of the particular moves and also part of the opening form, she said her hands did not hurt for the first time in as long as she could remember. She did well throughout the program and found great pleasure and relief in the soft, gentle hand movements. So another wonderful benefit from Tai Chi is that it is a flow, and so it's not about appearances and helping people externally look a certain way. It's about that fluidity that improves stability and coordination and mobility and all those things we know are so important. So it just all fits together. Very good medium for that. A lot of focus on weight shifting, which is particularly crucial because when anyone falls, the weight starts to shift and the person can't stop it, and therefore they end up on the ground or the floor. So if they can learn to let that weight shift and control it and bring it back to center, then the fall doesn't happen. We've had lots of stories like that. So are there questions? I know you've heard about this program multiple years, but this one is our main emphasis now. I did bring just a few flyers that show where all the programs are being offered this spring. A couple have not started yet, so if you know anyone might be interested.
Rebecca, I had a quick question.
Sure.
So for somebody who has taken the classes in the past, what would be the best way to encourage, and they are no longer here currently, that are living elsewhere, what would be the best way, do you think, to encourage them to get back into using those exercises on their own? Booklet or the information that they get, that they have?
We started off with a booklet, which Dr. Lee, the Oregon Research Institute provided. But what I found over the first 2 or 3 years is the book was, not that it wasn't complete, maybe it was too complete. Sometimes you'd have to flip through and read through about 5 pages to get through one move. Because it was so broken down in such small increments, which of course is helpful, but it also makes it difficult to kind of flow with it. So we've switched from that to the DVDs, and we've been giving one of those free. It was even a couple dollars cheaper than the booklet. So that's what we started writing in our grant and providing for everyone who took the class, and especially those that were completing it, so people could follow right along. And then as of spring of 2018, he was revising it. He is continuing to research the program. So he was revising the DVD. We went ahead and ordered some of the existing ones, and then in the fall, the Institute said they did not want anyone to purchase the old ones because the new one was coming out. It's supposed to be a year ago and then last fall, and now we're hoping it's this spring. So all that is to say,
I will ask to see if she has one of the DVDs.
That's what I'm wondering. Do you know what year she took it?
I can't remember. It was a while ago. So my mother was on the council. She's actually moved to Boston, and when I moved her out there, we had a lovely walk around Plymouth, Massachusetts, which was beautiful, but the sidewalks are the old cobblestone, and she is only a half a mile living from where she's supposed to work every day, and I was a little concerned. And but I know she took the class, she loved it, and so I think that's one of the benefits that, year after year, as I've heard you come and report about the program, is that it's not just about the 12 weeks. It really is about the ongoing and the continual. And so I just wanted to kind of get an idea as to what. And I don't know if she was able to take with her some of the materials, but I'll find out. But
do you know where she took it? Do you remember?
I don't, but that's,
Okay.
I'll ask. We can talk offline about that. I know that the continuation, it was here in the Springs, but I just think that the continuation of it after the fact, and so even though falls are still a concern no matter where you're living,
Right.
I'm much more concerned about where she's at now. And I think that's one of
course.
the benefits that I don't know if anyone realized, the rest of the council would realize that it is an ongoing. So it's something that they can do again, or they can just be reminded of, okay, it's time to kind of maybe do this again. So I will ask afterwards.
And I have 3 or 4 of the DVDs that are left, so if she does not
we'll
have
chat
one,
afterwards
I
then,
will get
okay.
one to you.
Carol?
Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Put your mic on, please, Carol.
Oh,
It's the middle one. It's good. You're on.
Thank you. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Carol.
You know me.
Yes, ma'am.
I've taken it a couple times, and I'm wondering, this spring, I fell in my house, just walking, and I didn't know. I was walking, and next thing I knew, I was on the floor. I've since had a complete shoulder replacement, and I know what I learned from the class, I did evaluate before getting up. And I knew that something was terribly wrong. And I'm wondering if I've taken the class 2 times. Is there a possibility of taking it a 3rd time? And if so, are you doing it in Teller County instead of Colorado Springs?
Yes, yes, no, and let me correct one thing. That's exactly what I do. I ask 3 questions, and my daughter goes, "Which one do you want me to answer?" So, actually, you took a matter of balance twice in Teller County, and this one is a totally different program, Moving for Better Balance.
Okay.
This one is a standing movement class twice a week, 12 weeks.
Okay.
A Matter of Balance, which was funded through our grant, and we also offered until this past July, this current grant year, I believe we offered the Matter of Balance for about 10 years. And that one was a 2-hour class once a week for 8 weeks, so it kind of a different format. The names are so similar, it gets very confusing. But even if it were the same program, yes, you would be able to take it again if there's a special circumstance, is usually how we look at that. But Moving for Better Balance, even though it's a standing program, I do, and I know all the other instructors do as well, have chairs available for support across the back of the room or down the sides, so anyone that needs to can hold on to the chair while they're practicing the movements and the weight shifting, or sit down, take a break whenever they need to.
Sure.
So we should talk about that class. It'd be great. And I am starting a Divide on February the 18th.
Excellent.
That's really all you wanted to know.
That's what I wanted to know, in Divide. That works for me. Rebecca, thank you so very much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Is there another question?
Hi. So in your report, it says your one, a need met is need for more instructors. Do you guys have a training program? How do you find or get, or how do you meet that need?
The trainer that we use is Maureen Hart. She is a YUSA trainer, and she works through she's a YMCA employee, obviously, and then also works through the Colorado State Health Department system, in that she has trained for them over the years. We currently we've had 1 or 2 that have either dropped out, one actually left the Y. So we're probably about 2 to 3 instructors short, and Jamie Clayton, who's going to be talking in a moment, she's the coordinator for all the evidence-based health initiatives. I never say that phrase exactly right. EBD, what?
Evidence-based health interventions.
Health interventions, not initiatives, yeah, okay. Anyway, she is just getting us a training schedule now for Moving for Better Balance instructors, and it will be held at the Tri-Lake Center, because that's an area that we are struggling to find better ways to advertise and recruit people for that particular location, because we don't have an instructor tied to that location that is teaching. We have one that goes there and teaches. And oddly enough, it's not quite as easy when that's not your home branch. So, but we think we've got that solved. So by the spring, it should be under control.
Any other questions?
I wanted to throw a real quick umbrella over this. I think a lot of folks don't necessarily understand the term evidence-based programming. The Older Americans Act will fund programs like what Rebecca is doing if they have significant research and they meet the criteria for a, quote, evidence-based program. We have a directory of about 70 programs nationwide. A good chunk of those come out of Stanford. That's where kind of the origin of a lot of these health promotion programs. And that is one of our emphases for the next year, is to kind of improve and expand that. If you're looking at bang for the buck, what these types of programs do for the community and do for the individuals is probably one of the best things we do.
Thank you, Joe.
That's good comments. Any other comments or questions? No, but you're going to have Jamie come up then?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure. Or Mary. I think Mary at the Senior Center.
Okay.
So if anyone wants a flyer, I'll just leave 3 or 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I am Mary Swantek. I am the director of the Colorado Springs Senior Center. I'm a little biased, but it is the happiest place for 55 and older in Colorado Springs. If you haven't been there, who hasn't been there yet? Let me see. You can raise your hand. All right, come see me afterwards. I'll schedule a tour. So, coming around to you all is our packet. So the Colorado Springs Senior Center, we are in a innovative partnership with the City of Colorado Springs and the YMCA, which happened in 2015. So what you're getting is our new 2019 magazine, and then inside are inserts. And the inserts list all of the classes we offer from January through the end of April. And specifically, if you want to pull out the health and lifelong learning classes, that's what we're going to be talking today regarding the grant. And then also coming around to you is a sheet with testimonies as well. So this is our very first funding year for getting funding to cover our free health and lifelong learning classes. And we're super grateful for this opportunity because it does more than just educate. And so that's what I'm looking forward to sharing with you all today. So real quick, the Colorado Springs Senior Center has been around since 1986. We have been in the community a fair amount of years. We are the education and recreational hub for Colorado Springs, really gearing to 55 and older, that full spectrum of that aging process. So when you look at our classes, we are program-based more than service-based senior center. That means we're not doing Meals on Wheels. We do house the Golden Circle Nutrition Program. It's not called that anymore. It's the Silver Key Connections Cafe. And we do have services like blood pressure checks and toenail clipping, but the majority of what we offer at the Senior Center are programs. So the grant that we have with the Area Agency on Aging is funding our education program for free health and lifelong learning classes. And so when you look at these life and learning classes, it's more than just education. It's really hitting the full spectrum of wellness. When we think about wellness, it's not just being physically fit and knowing how to eat right. It's how do you engage socially? How do you continue your expanding learning and intellectual programs? What can you learn about occupational items and how can you get involved in the community? How do I work on my emotional health? So these classes are not just a one topic, eat right, sleep better. They're a full range of that wellness spectrum. And like I had mentioned, we're servicing those who are 55 to 101. And the needs in that generation are very different. You have people who are entering Medicare who are like, by golly, I have no idea what to do. and then you have people who may be in their 90s when they're struggling with different things that someone who are just retiring may not. And so we're looking at the classes that we're providing, offering the community, we're being really intentional about what we're providing. So since July, when we were started to fund, and from now, we have taught and offered 87 classes, and we've had 703 people participate in those classes, an average of 8 people per class, which is pretty dynamic because that allows the instructor to have really good connection with the people who are participating and provide them with the right tools and education and really that personal touch point. So accomplishments, we are really proud of the people who we have teaching these classes. They're just not anyone. We sit down and we talk to these people who are physicians, who may be physical therapists or speech pathologists, people who know the field and who are professionals. And we really have an intense conversation of this is not a platform to sell. This is a platform solely to educate and to give our people the right information. And we do that, and we make sure that they know our population. Speaking to a group of kids is very different from speaking to people who may be a bit older. And so it's finding people who can deliver the information in a way they can understand and then be able to provide an outlet for questions and help them guide them through that. So we're really proud of the amount of classes we have, the variety that we offer, and then the partners who we have teaching those classes. Some challenges that we're facing is the participants funding or donating towards the programs. We've been around a long time, and so there's sort of this mindset of, well, we take these classes, we can take them for free. And so, nothing's really free nowadays. And so it has been difficult to get that participation donation. But I think after time, I think they're going to see kind of where we're headed and where we're going. And really it's about communicating. So communicating that this program is funded by a grant, and if you'd be willing to donate, we would greatly appreciate it. In addition, it's looking to how do we continue to advertise our classes in the community. We have a small team, high operation, so we need as many hands and feet in the community to spread the word and recruiting volunteers, attending fairs. We have a new strategy for 2019 where we're really heavily relying on the city's platform to market for us. And so that's going to be a huge action plan for 2019. And any unmet needs, we don't have any. The grand thing about the senior center is we can add another table and chair when we need it, or we can move them to a bigger room. And so if there's someone on the waiting list, by golly, we're going to get them in the class, and we're proud to share that. So looking at the testimonies, I just want to highlight one. These classes not only just provide information, but they create relationships. And we all know that when relationships are created, people become less lonely and less socially isolated. And that is the whole goal of the Senior Center, that no one in this community is home alone without a purpose, without value, without a reason to wake up in the morning. So when we offer these classes, people come together. It's a small group, right? 8 people is our average. It's a small group where they can learn about each other, get to know each other, find and build camaraderie. And then they keep coming, but then they develop relationships outside of the Senior Center. So let's look at the very last one, understanding annuities. One of these instructors we have teaching is Patricia Michaels, if anyone knows her. And she's a strong supporter of the Senior Center and has been for many years. And she's taught this class, and you can see one of the testimonies back from an evaluation. And the 2 questions we ask the participants are, what do you like best about the class? And what were their instructor's strengths? And this participant says, course was eye-opening, lots of great down-to-earth explanations, so materials understandable. That's huge. When you're talking about this stuff, I mean, I'm an educated, I'm intelligent. Some of this stuff is hard, the lingo. So having someone who can break it down for our participants is huge. And the instructor able to speak on our level, presented materials slowly, and encouraged questions. So you can read the rest, but I just want to stress that the grant is doing so much more than just educating. It's really transferring people's lives, and it's giving back to our community, and it's getting people outside of their homes and involved. Any questions?
Any questions? I think you need to work on your delivery, a little bit more energy. A little bit more passion.
Okay, I'll try. I love the senior center.
Well, we're glad
I can't
you're there.
hide it.
I'm sure it makes a big difference for the many seniors that go through the senior center. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would add my comments real quickly. One of the things when I was in a former job, when new people would come to town, I think Mary may have been one of them, the first thing I would have people do is go to the senior center on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning at 10 o'clock. And that's what it's about. That's the whole thing in a capsule. Mr. Barker's very familiar with what I'm talking about. And if you want to see active seniors and what we hope people will be in their 70s and 80s, that's the place to be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I'd like to kind of backtrack up to public comments. And Pat Ellis has asked to have a few minutes here to speak to the Regional Advisory Council. Everybody should know that
Different Pat.
I'm sorry.
The other Pat.
The other Pat Ellis. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Pat. Yeah, two Pats.
Good morning. I just wanted to take this opportunity to let all of you know I'm retiring and to thank you for the support that you've given Silver Key over the last many, many, many years, and particularly I can speak to the last 7.5. It's been a pleasure working with all of you, and I just wanted to introduce to you my replacement, Jason DeBueno. So, Phyllis, you have someone new to pick on. But thank you.
I got it.
Thank you very much.
Well, and I will just quickly say that there is no replacement for the work that you've done and what you've accomplished at Silver Key. It truly can't be done. However, I will say that the work that Pat has done is to build a leadership team, to be able to move things forward, to partner with people like Phyllis, and to be able to make sure that we're solving issues in the community. And whatever way I can bring a piece of support to that, I will. I've been involved with the RAC in the past as a community member through Aspen Point for many years, so I know the function of the RAC, and I know the support has been significant to Silver Key, and I hope to continue to have that strong relationship. Thank you, Pat, and thanks to all of you for the work that you do to help support the good work that happens throughout the community, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't also just, as a group, thank Pat for all the hard work and the participation that she's provided over the years. Silver Key has grown tremendously, and I think it's very much a tribute to the leadership of Pat and the dedication and the passion that she brings to serving seniors through the Silver Key organization. So on behalf of the RAC, we'd just like to very much thank you, Pat, and I think a standing ovation would be in order. Absolutely. Okay, now we can go to this Pat number 2.
So confusing. Happens all the time. Well, thank you, Dave, for letting me join you this morning. I'm Pat Going. I'm a member of the Colorado Advisory Council for Persons with Disabilities. And I've been associated with the Independent Center and with Dixie for quite a few years. And I'm here to really pass on some good news that the Independent Center has received a very generous grant from the Advisory Council to help people understand how to construct and retrofit parking lots. Being able to park at ADA compliant parking lot is so key for people with disabilities, for seniors, to be able to get to the goods and services. And we have put together a team of 6 people. For better or for worse, this is actually a statewide project. And we are offering our services at no charge. We have all sorts of resources. It's really two-pronged, helping people understand what an accessible parking lot is, also known what's a handicap parking space, what's an access aisle, the various signage that's needed. But also, we hope this program will minimize the abuse of handicap parking spaces. As we know, sometimes an 18-year-old might use their grandmother's placard to park 10 yards closer to the front door. So we hope to really educate folks. We anticipate working with local law enforcement to see if there might be ways to put together volunteer groups to help enforcement. We have an array of resources that are available to all of you, and we really would like to focus on the senior organizations, because as we know, as we get older, the likelihood of a disability certainly increases. We have a pamphlet that talks about, well, how do you apply, how do you get a parking license or a parking placard? There's a process, fairly straightforward. We also have a booklet on the fines that can be applied if somebody is violating those spots. Some of the other things, and again, all of these things are free. We have an array of these signs that is a message that you can put on the vertical pole that just in a nice way reminds folks, hey, this is a parking place that really needs to be utilized by somebody who needs it. So these are free. These are actually $45 license plates, and we have various people depicted, and I brought some, but it's so much more than just somebody that uses a wheelchair. We also have put together these orange cones. If indeed somebody needs an accessible parking space and the access aisle is not available, especially for vans, they could have a couple of these in their vehicle and they could put it in the adjacent parking space that would hopefully make that space available when they come back out of the store 15 minutes later and a car hasn't parked up next to it. So again, if you would like some of these, please let me know. If I may, Dave, I'm going to just stick around to the end of the meeting. If anybody wants to chat, if you would like some of these display materials for your front counter, please let me know. We'll get those to you. If you would like your parking lot surveyed, confidential, we won't turn you over to DOJ or anything, let me know. And also, I can send you a very brief checklist for you to also look at your parking areas. My email is patrickgoing@me.com, Patrick Going, no S on going, at me.com, and I can send you this checklist if indeed you want to do it yourself. Questions?
Pat, can you one more time reiterate the cost on all of these things?
Thank you, Joe. Due to a very generous grant, it actually is over $100,000 from the Advisory Council. All of these things are free. We really want to make an impact at the grassroots level. And I think with this team of 6 where we're canvassing the whole state, working with the independent centers, the 9 that are here in the state, hopefully we can really make that difference.
So I have a quick question. So obviously your comment about trying to first go towards those are senior types of businesses or involving with seniors. But this would be for any business, regardless of who they serve, that they could get someone to come out to do a survey so that they could be making those changes within their business parking lot, regardless of the services or who they specifically serve, but still get that survey done to make improvements if they need to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wendy. Okay. We really would like to also focus on the municipalities, the cities and counties, and if indeed they have ADA coordinators, so that we can really leverage this education. Also, absolutely for private businesses. Some of you may have heard of these infamous drive-by lawsuits. where somebody has come by and looked at a parking lot, something wasn't completely ADA compliant, and they would file a lawsuit, and basically it was a shakedown. If you give us $2,000, we'll go ahead and take our lawsuit back. So we're trying to really minimize that also. If indeed somebody has done a survey, that is absolutely the best defense if indeed one of these drive-by lawsuits might occur. I don't think I'm talking out of school here. Garden of the Gods Resort received one of these, and it cost them several $1,000s to rebut that lawsuit.
So the idea of that would be that if they've reached out, they've had someone come do a survey, they're obviously in the process, they're trying to make an improvement, it's kind of hard to come up and say, you know, you're not fulfilling this requirement when, in fact, they have actually made movements towards fixing it. So
you are so good.
Yeah,
Can I take you everywhere I go?
Yeah, we can do that, yeah. No, but and the only reason I think about that is that when, I think it was 2 years ago, I guess, when the elder abuse law was changed in Colorado, one of the things that I found was really interesting is that there were several of our nursing facilities that were scared about turning in some of those things that may have happened, or, you know, incidents between resident to resident. And I just didn't understand. I said, but if you are reporting those things, you're protecting yourself from future situations because you're showing that you are reporting things. And it was a really hard concept for some organizations to understand, and I think this is the same thing. If you're taking the steps to try to do something and you're making the best, you know, decisions possible, then you are, in effect, preventing yourself from further things.
That is so well said. Under the
well,
ADA...
I do get paid for that. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just joking. But it does. But this is a great thing for the small businesses. And so part of our job as the council is to be able, when we're out talking with people, just conversations we have with our friends and neighbors and obviously business folks that we interact with, that this is good information, that they can get free help, that they can come and, you know, and this also is a protection for their business as well.
And under the ADA, that's called good faith effort. And step number one is to assess where you are. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Pat. I'm Jen with the Colorado Community Health Alliance. I work with a lot of primary care physicians in town, and I've noticed that there is a lacking accessibility. There's not a lot of accessibility for disabled parking at physician practices. And these are smaller practices, not our large groups like DaVita's and Centura Health. Is there a possibility that we might be able to connect later on and I could put you in touch with those smaller providers? They do see a high number of patients who have disabilities, and it would be great for them to get that information.
Absolutely. I think I brought it. We actually have a specific brochure for medical providers that really targets that, because exactly what you said, that is such an important conduit. Jody, old friend Jody.
Hello, Pat. It was good to see you when I walked in this morning. Just wondering if you have on your list of contacts is to reach out to the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado related to their age-friendly certification, if that's something on their checklist when they go to inspect a business.
We
if
have
not, I would highly recommend that.
Great idea. When you and I have lunch next week, let's pursue that.
Sure.
Great idea.
And Pat, sort of piggybacking what he's saying too, the other thing I'm thinking that like there's a Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce EDC meeting tomorrow afternoon, and that's sort of like the state of the community. And again, you're going to, at a venue like that, you'd have the opportunity to meet and talk with lots of different businesses in a local area. And again, I think that would be very helpful for them, smaller businesses again, through the Chamber of Commerce. It's another venue for to reach out and get the information out. Would be very worthwhile, I think.
Well, that'd be terrific. And some of the other good news is this grant does go through June, so we do have some time to work it. Also, there's really very generous tax write-offs that are available that small business is unaware of. It literally is a 50% tax credit that may be taken annually. Wow. And for some reason, folks don't realize that good news.
Yeah, getting that information out would really be important for the business community. be super.
Should I just make a phone call to those folks?
Absolutely.
And get on the
I can-
agenda?
Yeah, I can get you in touch with them. Okay.
And maybe next month, something like that, Dave? That
Yeah.
would be terrific.
Yeah, Pat, another thing, it just occurred to me when you said that about the tax credit for the business, in alignment with what Jim was saying with the medical practices. I do a lot of work with the El Paso County Medical Society, and in conjunction with the practices she's involved with, that might be some information that I might be able to get out to them as well about the tax credit. So working together to encourage them, like, hey, you need to get these things fixed. It's a good thing for your patients, but it also would be not as financially a heavy burden as what they might think it would be.
Right.
And so whatever information you get her, send it to me too.
And also, that tax credit can apply to the adjustable exam tables. That is really significant, which they can cost $5,000, but boy, if it's a 50% tax credit, it changes the whole appraisal, without a doubt. Just one other quick thing, and then I'll...
Okay, we have two questions back
Oh.
here, too.
Yes.
My name is Chris Larson. We're developing a thing called Friends of Bailey Seniors. We're Shawnee, Grant, and Bailey. We just got the information from the commissioners that they're giving us a space in the Bailey Community Center, so they're developing that. So as far as information and developing our parking lot and the space, is that something that we could do with the initial contractors and get information from you to some type of additional funding for that?
The answer is pretty much yes. We can't help fund, but we can make sure that things are constructed properly. One of the real unfortunate situations is right now there is no inspection to ensure parking lots are done. The regional building folks who are under contract with 7 municipalities do not look beyond 5 feet of their front door. So unfortunately, it's a huge loophole where people mean well, but they'll put in a parking lot and not do it correctly, and then find out later that they're not compliant with the ADA, which is very common sense and very straightforward. And then that gets real ugly. Everybody gets real mad. So good resources out there, anything we can do to help.
We already had a business and they were shut down for not meeting the standards for accessibility, and it turned into a huge lawsuit.
I'm very familiar with that. Yeah, that was one of the worst stories. One of your larger employers in the town. Yeah, an awful story. And that was a drive-by lawsuit.
Exactly.
Right. Yes, sir.
She could probably get your attention.
Oh.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Pat. I think it's been very valuable that we get this information. We can pass it around in our communities.
And I'll stick around, and if you want to pursue this, would love to get business cards, that type of thing. Thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, now back on to the number 4 UCCS Aging Center, Magdalene Lim. So this is on a provider presentation. There should be another attachment to your package there about UCCS. May or may not be a long presentation.
Not going to be
You
too
wanna
long.
pass
But
those
there's
out?
there's some of these that I. If you like, if there's not enough copies and you need it, please feel free to email me and then we'll throw it. Okay. Very good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm director at the UCCS Aging Center, and I think this is my second presentation, so very happy to come back and say hello to all of you, and probably some are new faces I've not seen, and also for members of the public, I would like to share as much as I can, but some things I might elaborate, some I don't, so feel free to stop me when you have to. So I want to start by, thanking the Advisory Council for supporting us for more than a decade now, that allows our students to be trained and allow us to, use some of our professional skills or expertise to help members of the community. And I guess many of you already know the kind of services we're providing, particularly in partnership with, many community members. And of course, REC has been giving us that ability to structure care, mainly for caregivers and our seniors at risk, and we call the SOS program, that we collaborate, of course, with Silver Key. Pat and her team of staff has been awesome in helping us understand what's out on the ground. And I'd like to share some stories with you. Not that you've not heard about that, but I think there are new stories as we grow, as we learn. So I want to just give you some basic idea about what we do, and also share with you our excitement about how we are trying to expand and link services in a way that makes better sense for the care recipient, but of course at the same time restrained by funding. And so you have become our lifeline, fortunately and unfortunately, and that's the state of affairs. So I'm just going to...
Just the down arrow, Dr. On the keyboard.
Okay. Okay, good. So our services stretch from, services to individuals, families, caregivers. And if you think about the continuum of overall health care, you can think of an older adult, an older person coming to us for depression, for anxiety, for grief, losses, isolation, to the other end of the spectrum where we take care of end-of-life issues. So think about the kind of population we're covering, where also in between we deal with families, caregivers, and we also take care of having them come with chronic medical condition, right? Physical health functioning problems, and then with family dynamics and cognitive issues. So I think many of you are quite familiar with that. And because of the program that you have supported us with, as in providing free classes, all right, 6 weekly classes, free 6 continuous classes that many people do not yet know. Every time we meet a caregiver, they say, that's another lifeline for us. So I talk about that one. Because of that program, we're able to give that free individual service, free classes, and then have a monthly support group that is ever growing, that allows us to also think about how we can give services to individuals and follow that model. So what we have created is individual therapy, and then groups, and then a monthly support. So you can see how what we have here is really taking care of individuals, family, and group, and circling around that is a lot of cognitive support that we provide, as in memory clinic, as in neuropsychological evaluation. And what's new, and I'm very proud to share that we are now able to do capacity evaluation. That is part of neuropsych evaluation, but it's quite different in the sense that we have to work with APS very closely. And this is from a different funder, and that's Next 50. And that allows us to make better sense to do intervention much earlier than wait for APS to come to us and say, this particular client or older adult is at risk and requires support. We don't quite know whether the person can live alone or not. So if you do hear of older adults who require that kind of assessment, we have employed a neuropsychologist right now, and very rare in town. And we have started working on that piece of it because it helps caregivers, it helps families. So all these are making sense. So if there's any question, please, let me know. And it's been really wonderful, to have all the services together. So because of this program, again, last year we have provided services for 111 unique clients with about 2,000 service units. And how we work on caregiver services really is using Dr. Sarah Quell's model of caregiver family therapy. All our graduate students go through a series of didactics and classes so that they can identify, the different kind of structure that we can go in to intervene with. I want to share with you a very quick story about why it is important to name the problem. In a very recent session, we met a couple, kind of high-functioning couple, and there has been a new diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment. In a more technical term, we call them mild neurocognitive disorder. In an old term, we say it's mild dementia. And when we talk about mild dementia, what happens is that it can go 3 different ways. One is it can be reversible. One is it's just stay as it is. And another one will progress to full-blown dementia. So think about the family, the couple came in, and I asked them what's the goal. And the caregiver, who's the wife, would say, he's not doing enough. I worry that his cognition is going to decline because he no longer wants to go out for activities. And when I asked the care recipient, he says, I'm just depressed. I cannot go out. I cannot track conversations. Why would I go for activities? Right? And so you can see a lot of complexities as they both tell me their stories, and both are valid. And so part of our work, again, with the funding, with using this model, we're able to name the problem because often we forget to accept that there is a diagnosis there. We want our family members to continue to do as well as they can, but there's also the mental health issues. So if there's a sense of acceptance somewhere, we can come to a middle ground, and that's a big part of the work we do, as in accepting each other's perspective and see how they can have a better quality of life together. So this model has been awesome, and our students have benefited as well as community members. So I believe many of us have been hearing about stories from caregivers, from care recipients, from families, and also in our own experience. But what is important, I think, for the work we do is really the new narrative. Listening carefully is one thing, but having the caregiver able to give a new narrative is even more important. It's not about what we tell them to do, it's what they now say, that I have better control, of how I can support the care recipient. So here, this is a family that has a history of depression. And so this older adult comes in with depression, has a diagnosis of PTSD as well as personality disorder, as in obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. That means there's a very perfectionist, trait there, right? Where the home has to be clean, but now unable to, do not want to go to any facility because it's never the same as at home. My things has to be placed in a certain way. All right, they all have to be super clean. And so how are we going to take care of the caregiver who has depression and having to take care of mother who doesn't want to leave the home? All right. And so, after classes, after individual sessions, they come to better understand the situation. And I love hearing the new narrative. All right. My mother is less rigid after having been seen for individual and group therapy. I have learned to provide care in a different way, accepting what I cannot change and doing what I can do. The classes and support groups are validating for me. I no longer feel alone. And often it is that sense that nobody else can understand unless you go through exactly what they go through. So part of the support, again, is to have a monthly support group where everybody is able to kind of, share their experience, as well as their own illness, their own fear of aging. So, again, it's one of the good stories that I hope we can continue to tell. One other story here is about a new narrative where, again, it is mild dementia, and there's, again, couple issues.
many of these caregivers also come in with a history of other mental health issues, as in this case is a panic attack. All right, so I just want to quickly share the new narrative that being the spouse and a care recipient is enjoying therapy. So we got individual therapy, and we also value the time together now. So the couple is now able to get together and spend time and say, let's enjoy the present moment. There is an acceptance of what that disease means, what is the trajectory, and that's, again, important. This is another success stories. I think we could share many. You might also already know, and this is for a distance caregiver. So I'll leave it to you to just kind of read that on your own. And moving forward with our partnership with Peak Vista, Rocky Mountain PACE, Pikes Peak Hospice and Palliative Care, as well as with Silver Key, we have reached out to about more than 1,500 of service units out there, and our students also have got quite some publications in the magazine Life After 50. There has been quite some good topics, that has been shared with the community, and we constantly try and participate in health fairs. So Caring for Caregivers workshop often would be like sometime between 1 to 4 in the afternoon, and we have sponsorship by Mackenzie to kind of have maybe about 40 people register for the talk. Many of them are caregivers, and then when we do an index measure on their strain, on their stress, we will often find that it's way above the time that they should come and seek services. So this is another one that often once we have this, we will receive many phone calls to say, hey, I want to have some kind of service, and we now have a waiting time about 1 to 2 months. We're hoping to do a little bit more. Our students are trained at the same time with supervision. So that, again, has been great. So I want to quickly jump to senior outreach services that we have been collaborating with Silver Key. And what is this actually about? Is really our goal is to seek out at-risk persons who are 60 years or older, and what Silver Key staff has been doing a great job in terms of training the local residents on how to refer these clients. Often it might be someone in a neighborhood or somebody they hear about that needs help. So one of the main goals, of course, is to maintain the independence for as long as possible. And so why do we need to have SOS, right? And so this is not new to you. Many older adults are suffering alone, poor physical health, financial constraints, social isolation. And so I want to again quickly share with you, I happened to go visit one of these older adults together with the therapist who's been often assigned. And this is a 80-plus-year-old Korean American woman. And what was reported to us is that she often believes that people are stealing her things. And so we're wondering, is that some kind of a delusion? Is it psychosis? Is it mental health issues? And because of cultural issues, I can't quite actually understand from the report I received about what's going on. And I also heard that this particular older adult is unable to recognize this therapist. So one becomes worried about whether she's demented, right? And so I thought, like, maybe this is a time I have to really go in and take a look. And so what happened is really cultural issues that many of us have not paid attention to just with didactics. We really need to see the person. And so I asked, our therapist who's been there, it's like, this lady is seeing you the second time but doesn't recognize you. And so I asked, have you always been putting your glasses on? Is it the same pair of glasses? And she told me, like, no, the last time I had no glasses on. Right? So that's kind of giving me a sign as to some things is not just very mainly professional assessment. Sometimes are just very basic things that we need to know about how they're living, right? And then she started to listen with her hand this way, right? And so she can't quite hear us. But we don't really know because she could respond, right? So we need to be very sensitive to many of all these other issues. And if we go, and so what is so beautiful about this program is we go to their home, right? They don't come dressed. Many of them tell us they take a shower before they come, and that's the only shower they take in that week because they come to our clinic. But when you go to the home, it's a whole different story, right? And there were beautiful pictures at the site. And she has 3 wonderful, beautiful children. A couple of them are here, some are out of state, but she's been abandoned. She was homeless for a while, and SOS kind of picked her up. And she's very personable, some memory issues, and that's about. So it's another heartwarming story, and I believe that together with Silver Key, we'll be able to work on case management about how to provide in-home service, because now I don't actually worry about dementia. I worry more about her physical health and whether she could reach out to obtain other kinds of support. So how does SOS work? So we have a community member identified. Many of these are likely trained, and then the individual get to call SOS. There's a devoted line. The Silver Key case manager goes contact with them, finds out what's exactly the problem, and then they will connect to appropriate services. By default, many of them come to the aging center, but some that we identify that might have some substance use or some long-term needs, because SOS is able only to provide 8 free services. And if we think that more longer services are needed, we sometimes refer them to Aspen Point. Okay, so this is a little flow just to give you a sense of what happens. And what's most significant here really is our bi-weekly meetings together. SOS, and I need to introduce our project manager, Laura Engelman, is the reason that we are able to obtain funds and get everything set up and to have all this collaboration in the community. And so she and myself and staff of the Silver Key and case managers sit together and talk about whether APS has to be involved up front, whether it is just transportation issues, whether it is food, whether it is any kind of basic needs that's necessary. So it is a flow that I think you can take your time to take a look at. Yes.
I see care there in terms of, say, behavioral health, but in terms of, say, assistance with daily living activities, that sort of thing, what do you do about referrals for that? Oftentimes these folks need additional care in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you send folks? What is your referral system for that?
So for those, some has in-home care. So we're not, okay, the aging center is not totally involved in that. And so we depend on our Silver Key colleagues to look into that. So they have case managers and they have many, many resources where they will have in-home services or case managers go in and assess. Yeah, and some of them, they help them, I think, when they have Medicaid, they have other services. So for example, if they qualify for places like PACE that provides a long-term service for them or take care of their housing needs, where there are support systems, that's what they do. Yeah. So how can you help look for these warning signs? They are the domains of mental, physical, and emotional piece of it that you can identify, also mainly social isolation. Sometimes we go by appearance. And then the environment I mentioned earlier, that neighbors could look at how the place might be kind of cluttered. And then, of course, the financial constraints where Silver Key has often provided in many ways where utility support is needed. And that's how they got referred to us.
What I'd like to interject right here, if I could, just in the last few minutes, Fire Marshal Jamie Baumgartner from Tri Lakes Monument Fire Protection District has come in. He's sitting here and he's going to meet with Joe and I after the meeting here. But interestingly, what you're talking about here, that's what the fire department in their public assist visits, they go out on a one-on-one basis or multiple times to the same address, and they see these types of things. And the question that Jamie asked, his crews are seeing couple A, they're doing these types of things, that repeatedly the fire department are going there to handle these types of things. Who do they refer them to? So I've asked Jamie to come down, and we put him in contact with Silver Key SOS as the case managers, then can contact the couple that's been supported there in the Monument area. But at a larger issue then, or not issue, but an opportunity, is really that the fire departments and the emergency medical people that they send out, they are seeing in the individual communities repeatedly people with these types of issues. And in many instances, you don't have neighbors or you don't have family members that are watching those couples. So it's really important, I think, for the Silver Key SOS program here to really make a connection with the fire departments, because across the communities, they're going to have a great understanding and insight into couples or individuals, widowers that are suffering.
Yeah,
it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's really something, I think, on an outreach basis would be really helpful to get fire departments across the region aware of the Silver Key SOS program. Pat?
So part of the SOS process is going out in the community and training and looking for red flags and who would be appropriate. And we have done those trainings with the CARES program at the fire department.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, Pat, this is Jamie. Jamie, this is Pat. We're in the same, and they're both in the Tri-Lakes area, too.
Magdalene, can I just make a comment? And I know you're going to finish in a second, but it kind of goes back to what Dave's question was about, how do those services get put into place if you find them? I had and I've told you about this situation with a family friend for years that I knew that the mother was struggling with dementia, and I had been, I'm kind of the go-to information gal when it comes to this type of stuff, and I had been telling them for several years, here are some ideas, here are some suggestions. I even taught them on behalf of the Alzheimer's Association a family class just for them, and it just had not pushed him to where he needed to make some decisions until he finally started doing the classes, and he had that one-on-one support, and he didn't listen to me, even though I'm a professional, because I was a friend, but when he was in an environment with the professional, with the counselor, and they told him the same information I was telling him, he finally made some decisions, and he was able to move forward and to start putting some of those things in place. And so it's just been a huge success for us. Unfortunately, she's just turned 60, and she's already in a full-time facility because her care has declined so great. I mean, her abilities. And so I would just like to commend them for what they do. So if they are in a situation, the resources, the encouragement that the families get as to where they go, how to get those resources and get them into place, they do a phenomenal job. I tried, and I couldn't do it, just I think of our relationship. But they were able to do it, and it does get done. So those referrals do happen regardless of the situation, and then oftentimes the families can make those steps further afterwards.
Yeah, thank you for your support and being so encouraging. There really is a lot of coordination that we have to make before we get to see the client, and so there's a lot of time spent out there, wanting to be, as gentle as we can, wanting to be as respectful, thinking about older adults' autonomy, how we cannot force them to have service. But how they might cognitively be unable to understand exactly what's going on. So we have to navigate that terrain in a respectful way. And so I would close this. I'm sorry that I seem to be up here for so long. And I've been hesitating to tell you more, and I hold back and I tell you again. So basically, I think with this wonderful program that you have gifted us, is allowing us to synergize that with our services for individuals. We talk a lot about caregivers, but I want you all to know that we also value every single individual older adult who comes to us whether they have cognitive issues, mental health problems, physical health problems, they are still very functional in many ways. So sometimes in order to help caregivers, we have to provide support to these individuals where they also can accept their diagnosis. Think about us. Someday somebody says, you have mild dementia. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to feel down. We might be shocked, And that makes a difference in how we communicate with our family and the world, right? So if we can also take care of them, instill some hope, then it's easier for the caregiver to also provide support. And so this is about knowing the family dynamics, supporting, using community resources, having conversations. So I appreciate this opportunity to communicate with you and sharing our excitement of, making greater growth despite the funding constraint. So very happy to be able to share more. So this is the devoted line for SOS. And I want to thank you very much, and please be in contact with me anytime if you have more questions that I'm unable to answer for you right now. So if there's any questions.
Any other questions, comments? I think very valuable program. Yes, there's one over here. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm a little confused about the contact base. Do you go through SOS or through Silver Key, or do you contact your program through the university? What's
okay.
the contact?
Okay. So the contact is the previous. Let me see. Right. So Silver Key and UCCS Aging Center are collaborators in this SOS program. So if it is for SOS, this is the number to call, and SOS staff will initiate this with a case manager and a contact with us. Okay. All right. You're welcome.
Was there another question? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're moving to Joe Urban and the director's report.
We haven't met for 2 months. I've got a stack here, and I'll get through it as quickly as I can. Wanted to highlight a couple things, milestones that have occurred. Lisa Aldrich, sitting to my left, just passed her 10-year mark with the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. She was recognized at the board meeting last month, so we want to congratulate her. And also, today she's celebrating the anniversary of her 29th birthday. So if you would wish her a happy birthday, I would appreciate that. Another milestone, many of you know Kent, who runs our family caregiver program. Kent became a grandfather this week, and so he is in Phoenix loving on his new grandchild, who has the exact same hairdo that he does. Wanted to remind everybody, I think all the RAC members, but if you're not a member of the RAC, the PPACG Transportation Department is hosting a informative seminar, a panel, if you will, on Monday at Centennial Hall relative to autonomous transportation. We had the opportunity to get a couple nationally known speakers relative to not only autonomous vehicles, but also delivery systems that use autonomous systems. So if you have any interest in that at all, it has a huge impact on the senior community. And that will be, I believe it starts at 1 o'clock at Centennial Hall. I can get you that information. I do have that information here if you'd like to hear more about that. It's 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock with 4 panel members on Monday. A funding update. I will be really glad when I don't have to give funding updates anymore. We received the last of our funding on Monday. So if I know a lot of folks have been kind of waiting on the edge of their seat for that carryover funding as well as the last allocation. I keep saying that if we get back to a normal year, I'm not sure there's going to be a normal year again. This is funding that we probably should have gotten last June. And the last of it has come through, so we will be issuing another mini RFP this week. It will probably close out fairly quickly in about a week and a half. And then Dixie, who leads our TRS, will convene that group, and we will do a one-time sit down and look at all those funding requests and allocate the rest of that funding for fiscal year 2019, and hope that everybody has time to spend it. Yellow Book's in process. So I have talked to a couple people this morning, but if you were an advertiser and you did not get an opportunity to advertise in the Yellow Book, sometimes our folks change in certain positions, so our emails don't get through. If you would like to advertise in the Yellow Book, 25,000 copies go out regionally, and it is, as many of you know, the Bible for senior services in this part of Colorado. So I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about that. We've got about 8 days left in that advertising cycle before we have to get that stuff put together and sent to the printer. I have, my life for the last week and a half or 2 weeks has been the 4-year plan. We will have, or I will have a draft of that to the subcommittee of the RAC that is going to help review that, make suggestions, improvements to it. Our goal is to get that back to this group for the February meeting for approval, to the PPACG board for approval in mid-March, and then I have to have it to the State Unit on Aging by March 31st. We call it an area plan. It's done every 4 years, and it's in essence a long-range strategic plan that lasts for approximately 4 years. Wanted to note, I think some people probably already know this, but Wade Buchanan, who actually came and spoke to us a while back as the senior advisor, the advisor on senior affairs to the governor's office, a position that was recently funded by Next 50. It's been around for about a year and a half now. Wade has become part of the staff of Governor Polis's office. He is an advisor on policy around senior issues, but other issues. If you know Wade, he has a pretty varied background. So that new position has been interviewed for, and I believe there's supposed to be an announcement in the next few days relative to who will be filling his old position.
Are you going to invite that new person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also on a side note, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but there are several different positions that are addressing senior issues statewide. So if you haven't heard of any of those, matter of fact, I'll give a full update on those next week. Haley Gleason, who has been in Colorado Springs for a period of time, is very closely associated with the UCCS certificate program, has recently been appointed as a senior advisor at HCPF, Healthcare Policy and Finance, which is a new position. They've never had that before. It's a major step forward in terms of getting those senior issues out at the forefront at HCPF. So, legislatively, we're not quite a month into the session, 3 weeks into the session. There's a lot of bills that are just now being ferreted through, but some significant ones to seniors. There's the guardianship, Office of Public Guardianship bill has come up again, as well as some rights, a companion bill that looks at rights relative to guardianship. Hugely needed issue in the state of Colorado, one of the few places that doesn't have a Office of Public Guardianship, and it would significantly increase the quality level of what we're looking at in Colorado. There are bills relative to drug pricing, and of course the homestead exemption will be a major topic of consideration this year during that session. We do have a contract lobbyist. When I say we, it's the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, has a contract lobbyist who follows all these bills. Also, we've mentioned Colorado Senior Lobby a number of times, which keeps on top of those. If you're not, if you're interested in that and you want to keep up to date on those, Colorado Senior Lobby is one of the best organizations to be able to be involved with. And lastly, and very important, we have, as of yesterday, have hired the program development administrator. Carrie's old position has been empty for about 6 months. I want to thank Lisa and Pat Ellis for sitting on that search team that looked through. I think they only had to look through about 8 or 10 apps. We had 84 applications for that position. We were very, very pleased with the quality as well as the quantity of folks that were interested in that. And as of yesterday, we hired Melissa Martz to that position. She will be starting on Monday. I think I see some eyes open up. I think a lot of people in this city know Melissa. She was programs director for Care and Share for a period of time. She was the founder and CEO of the Women's Resource Center and has been involved with a lot of other projects in town. So we're quite excited to get Melissa on board, and start looking at expanding a lot of the programming that we've got going already, as well as looking at the new things that we have not touched on yet. And one last thing, I think a lot of folks in this room probably had the opportunity to go to the Age-Friendly Midway Report. If you'd like to look at this particular group, I'd be happy to. I've got a couple copies of their Midway Report. We are working pretty closely with them on the Senior Portal project, but lots going on there as well. I would take any questions if anybody has any.
Well, thank you, Joe, for the very comprehensive rundown there. From the RAC chair perspective, I think I mentioned at the outset that there's a new format for the minutes. That's standardization across the PPACG. The other thing I'd like to point out, too, is that in my local area up in the Monument, I've been doing a lot with wildfire mitigation, preparedness, those types of things, and working very closely with the fire marshal as far as, evacuation in the case of fire and all that kind of stuff. But it really ties in individually. Just as another comment would be that in our own areas, that wildfire or emergencies, we need to be aware of the seniors or those that have limited mobility or for whatever reason are not connected well in their neighborhood. We really need to be aware of them, because in those dire situations, they're the ones that really need the help first. So it's just a heads up on that. The other thing I wanted to point out, too, is that, like I said, Jamie Baumgartner's the fire marshal and also battalion chief for Tri-Lakes Monument Fire Protection District. And that public assist piece is really something, again, that I think is an important mental note for each of us to think about that when you interact with your fire department. Are they aware of, in their public assist visits, these are really the non-emergency ones, where they're coming out because somebody either has a minor fall or is just confused or whatever it may be. Those are the types of issues that, from a senior care perspective, we really need to be aware of in our own local areas. And I think that's about. Oh, I wanted to mention too the subcommittee. Joe mentioned that he's working on the 4-year plan. They'll soon be ready. So, Jen, if you would like to say a few words about the subcommittee and how they plan on tackling this.
Sure. So we actually have been in touch with Joe. We'll have the plan to start reviewing early next week. We're hoping as a kind of a draft, but then we've
sometime after Sunday.
we are going to meet a couple of times before the next RAC meeting on February 28th. So our subcommittee will be meeting on the 7th and the 21st. Our goal is to have something that you guys can review before the 28th. And hopefully have a few days with it to look over it before we bring it to the council meeting on the 28th.
Okay, any questions on that process? Very important, I think. We've had that discussion a couple of times throughout the last few months, if not years, about, the inputs from the RAC members when they look at the strategic plan or they look at the 4-year plan or they look at any document that's coming out dealing with seniors. How do we register our comments? How do we weigh in, if you will, and provide a viewpoint on that? So this subcommittee, which is temporary, 6 months from now until June, that is the role of that subcommittee, to really look at those types of things. So please, the members are Jen, Jody, and Bea. And as the chair, I sit on it as well. So any questions, comments you have on that, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Okay, are there any other questions for me then? Next would be the calendar of events then. Lisa, I think we have one there. The annual provider fair is coming up.
Yes, next month on February 28th, we're having our annual provider fair. Lots of feedback, positive feedback from the ones we've had in the past. It's an opportunity for the providers to educate RAC members before the funding cycle starts and kind of refresh your memories about all the wonderful things that they're doing for seniors and their family caregivers in the community. The providers also see it as an opportunity to network and learn about and from each other during the event. And the most important thing is the snacks will probably be at a little bit higher level than donuts. So for no other reason, come for the snacks.
That's great.
But I do strongly encourage all of our providers to come. And if you can't, let me know, and we'll see what kind of workaround that we can do to get the information you would be presenting to the RAC in your absence. But really would like to see you here.
If you're someone who only comes to a few RAC meetings a year, that's the best one to come to. That's the one to come to. You get to see all of our 18 providers, plus sometimes prospective providers, and talk to everybody at once and look at all their programs. It's a great opportunity.
Great opportunity to get fed.
Lisa?
Question?
In conjunction with the RAC meeting itself?
Right here, right.
It is most of the meeting.
Okay.
We have an abbreviated meeting, and then we have the
Abbreviated
opportunity. We put set tables around the full perimeter of the room, and it's like going to a small health fair, if you will.
Well, and I don't know, for those who are relatively new to the council, just to give a little historical perspective, many years ago, the February meeting was a combined opportunity for the providers to present. So it was like a 5-minute, you've got 5 minutes and boom, go. And that's all you had to interact with the providers for the whole year. And it just wasn't enough time. It was always difficult, and it just felt like we didn't get to ask the questions, and we didn't get the opportunity to really get to know them, what they were doing well, the weaknesses or things like that that they were struggling with, unmet needs that they had. And so how that was changed is, so every month at our meetings, we now have that lengthier opportunity, like we did today with YMCA as well as with the Aging Center, to really get more in-depth information on across the year. So rather than having everybody all in one day, we would have 2 or 3 providers each month, at each of the meetings. And so what the February meeting turned into then was an opportunity to have the more of the informal opportunity. And having been a part of both styles, this is such a better way, because quite frankly, the entire purpose of our responsibility as a council is to understand the programs, know what's important about them, and to be able to make those important decisions when it comes to funding times. Now, we may not all sit on the TRS, with that technical review subcommittee, but we still get to have input as to where we feel the priorities will be in conjunction with 4-year plan and all that. But this really is, it's so different than how we used to do it, and I can't stress how important it is to have the opportunity to have the formal presentations like we've had today and throughout all the rest of the year, but then the informal opportunity to really chat with them and get to know more about what their programs are on a much more one-to-one level. So can't stress how important it is to be able to be there. For any new council members who've not been a part of that meeting, I really think you'll appreciate the new information that you'll get. And that's when those questions you may have had that have come up as you've heard other things, that you'll get that chance to ask those questions then. But as far as our role and what it is that we do, it really is a vital part of getting to know the programs and the providers and being able to make those decisions when the time comes.
I would like to echo what Pat Going said earlier. Very well said. Very well said.
Lisa?
Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Dixie.
Yeah, I just wondered if I could get clarification if this is just for existing providers or if new interested providers would be welcome.
Yeah, and I may have misspoke that a little bit. We encourage new providers to come. They won't necessarily be presenting.
When you say new, do you mean like?
Perspective, sorry.
Potential.
Yeah.
We did that one year, and we had more prospective providers than we had current providers, so we're probably...
They wouldn't have a booth, but prospective providers are encouraged to come just to see what's going on.
But I think it's fair to say that the focus is on the current providers, right?
Yes, correct.
Right.
Okay, that's the interaction, and the others are welcome to see and try to interact. But the focus is on those currently served here, the 18 providers. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
A question on becoming how you
Become a provider?
Part of the provider group. How do you petition to be part of that?
Lisa would love to talk to you about that process. It's really as simple as getting on our email batch for we send out an RFP each year. This is going to be one of those years where getting rid of the last year's money and starting next year's money are going to be about 2 weeks apart. But if we get you on the email list, you'll be able to get that information.
That's correct.
Other comments or questions? If not, yes, ma'am. Yes, Cynthia. Sure.
Cynthia Aki. I just realized that my name was not on the present list here, nor was it on the absent list, but I believe I was present. You were present.
Okay, so.
I wasn't on the list either, but I wasn't here. List either, though.
So we need to add Cynthia and,
If you want to get your record straight for your quorum.
okay. So Cynthia's not on there, huh?
We should add Cynthia Aki as present last month, and we should add.
Let's document
Shit.
that she wasn't here.
Add Lucy.
Add Lucy as missing.
That's right.
And Ruth? Joe Ruth? You were here as well?
We will get that corrected.
Any other last minute changes? Okay, at this point, we can I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor? Thank you.
We need a bigger one. We need more.
Okay.
We don't have to do that?
No, it's, whoever the chair is just adjourn. By parliamentary procedure, they have that authority.
So we have our handicap parking sign. It's right under it, right? Well, I gave you my card since you've never been to the senior center. I have to give you a card.
And a happy anniversary for being a amazing. That's great.
You're going to go right.
Yes, they love you because you like to try it all. That's great.
I need your card, though. No, he's not coming at all. So cold. I'm trying to stay in. Nobody's invited you. Oh my God, you gotta get invited.
I'm going to catch this lady over here for a minute. That's even closer.